Alright, welcome to the Strange North channel. In this video, I'm going to give you my top 5 cryptid legends from the province of Ontario. And you probably know this, but if you don't, a cryptid is a creature of folklore, mythology, or legend. And the existence of these creatures has not yet been proven, and there's a bit of controversy and debate around the subject. But I just find that wherever you are on the spectrum of belief, it can be useful to look at cryptid legends, because at least in my case, it helps me learn a lot more about an area's history and mythology. And I find that really interesting. And I've already done cryptid videos for Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, and now I want to move to the east. And you'll see that some of these cryptids I've already covered in other videos. These things have been reportedly seen across North America, and so they're not exclusive to Ontario. And then some of these creatures are specific to Ontario, and so there's a bit of a variety. And I'm just going to give you a general overview of these legends. If you're really interested in cryptids, I would definitely check out Hammerson Peters. He has a great YouTube channel, and he's really the foremost expert when you're talking about legends of this sort within Canada. He often finds excellent source material, and he really fleshes out in great length a lot of these myths and legends. And of course, he draws from both First Nations and European folklore. And so I love his channel, and I definitely recommend it if you're really into cryptids. But this is just going to be an overview, and like I said, I'm not listing every single cryptid legend from within Ontario. This is just my personal top 5 as a launching point for introducing the subject. And this intro has already been too long, so I'm going to jump right into the list, and at number 1 is the Agogo. And it's another one of Canada's many mythical lake creatures, and it is said to dwell in Lake Simcoe in Ontario. Other nicknames for this creature include Beaverton Bessie after Beaverton, Ontario, and Kempenfelt Kelly after the bay that extends from the lake into the city of Barrie, Ontario. The city of Barrie actually has a sculpture of the Agogo on their waterfront area. David Sewells, who was an early settler in this area, is credited with the first official sighting of the Agogo in 1823. He said that one day while he was tending his sheep near the lake, he saw a long creature leaving a wake in the water and a trail in the mud. In 1952, there was another major sighting by 4 witnesses, including Wellington Charles, who was chief of the Georgina Island First Nation. On July 22nd of 1963, Reverend Bill Williams also saw this creature while he was out on the lake boating with his family. In 1983, sonar operator William Scrippets reported detecting a large animal with a long neck in the lake, but many people disputed this claim, and they said that what he was detecting instead was a large school of fish in the water. I also read about a rumored video from 1991 of a large seal-like creature in the lake, but I could never find that video. There was also another alleged video of this creature that never made it to light. In 2016, John Kirk of the British Columbia Cryptozoology Club claimed on his appearance on The Shirley Show that he had a tape of this creature, although he did not show it to the public. People have said that this creature looks a bit like a seal, although there have been reports of this creature having a really long neck, which seals normally don't have. People have also said this thing has a horse or a dog-like head, again a long neck, and it often has several dorsal fins as well. And with people sometimes saying this creature looks like a seal, many people speculate that that's what people are actually seeing, that this creature belongs to the pinniped group, which includes otters and seals. And so no definitive proof of this creature has ever been found, but the Agogo remains a very strong legend around Lake Simcoe, and it's just definitely one of the stronger cryptid legends within Ontario. Okay, at number 2 on the list is Musy. This is another lake creature, and it's said to live in Muskrat Lake. There have been many different descriptions of this thing over time, and this is the description of the creature given by local historian James Robison. It is described as having 3 eyes, 3 ears, 1 big fin halfway down its back, 2 legs, and 1 big tooth in front. It is silvery green in color, and it stretches for 24 feet. The legend of this creature started around 1916, and it was originally called Hepexalor. A man from Cobden named Humphreys was a well-known advocate for the existence of Musy early on. But there's also this legend of Samuel de Champlain writing of this creature in the early 17th century, but there's no concrete evidence that he did this. But he definitely did write about hearing loud screams coming from sea monsters off the Grand Banks of Newfoundland. Author Michael Bradley and his associate Deanna Thielman Bean searched for the monster on a boat called Nepenthe, I think that's how you say it, and this boat was equipped with sonar technology, and with this sonar they said that they found 2 creatures that they theorized were 2 marine mammals about 3 meters long. After this investigation, Bradley concluded that at least 1 creature compatible with Musy's description lived in this lake, but he did not investigate any further. And so there have been sporadic sightings of this thing over time, and and Musy has now become a mascot of this area, and the creature appears on signs welcoming people to Cobden. In the 1990s, a tourism marketing campaign in the area offered $1 million to anyone that could catch a live specimen of this creature. Musy is featured in travel pamphlets for the Whitewater region area, and one of them even suggests that this creature can simply be caught by a fishing rod. Some people have speculated that Musy is actually a pygmy walrus, similar to the seals in Seal Lake, Quebec, although this creature is not normally known to inhabit this area. Okay, at number 3 is Bigfoot or Sasquatch. You're probably well aware of this cryptid, but it's basically a tall humanoid covered in hair, usually far more muscular than a normal human. It's often accompanied by a terrible smell, and it's just described as something that's sort of half human and half ape that walks upright and lives in remote areas of Canada. And of course, this cryptid is most strongly associated with the Pacific Northwest, particularly British Columbia within Canada. But if you're into this subject, you're probably well aware that this particular cryptid has been seen across the continent, and so I think it's definitely considered one of the main cryptids in Ontario. And interest in this cryptid goes back many decades, even just going back through the newspaper archives. I found a whole bunch of articles talking about this subject throughout the decades. There's actually a group called the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and they've compiled cases from Ontario spanning from 1958 to 2020, and they're continuously updating their reports. Someone reported an encounter in June of 1964 near Markdale, Ontario. Quote, "I was in my early teens riding in the back seat of our family car coming from my dad's cousin's farm. Both my parents were in the front seat. As we rounded a curve on the gravel road, the car headlights showed some lateral light to the sides. I was looking out the right window and saw standing up on the embankment at the tree line a tall fur-covered creature. The roadside embankment went up about 10 feet. As our car passed, I turned around to look out the window, and the thing was now walking down the embankment and stopped and stood at the edge of the road. I could see it clearly in the brake lights and some light coming from a lodge across the road as my dad slowed to stop at a stop sign about 300 feet from the creature. I yelled at my parents to turn around, but they just doubted my sighting and drove on. It was at the closest about 35 feet from the car. Note, I am 100% convinced that this was a Sasquatch for 2 reasons. Number 1, no bear walks down an embankment on its hind legs. And 2, few men are 7 feet tall, and if it was a man in a monkey suit, why would he try to not be seen by us until we passed? A hoaxer would want to be seen." Here's another report from that website, and this happened in October of 1990 near Red Lake, Ontario. And in this story, a couple of friends are out in the bush and they hear some really weird noises. Here's a quote from the story. Quote, "Suddenly the noises stopped completely, and about 5 seconds later I saw it. Initially I thought what I was seeing was another hunter. That feeling soon went away. It was definitely human looking, but not quite. I'll always remember my initial reaction. I instantly said to myself, this jackass is going to get himself blown away walking through the woods dressed in black like that. Within about 2 seconds I realized I could not possibly be looking at a man. Whatever this was took a couple of steps out from the bush to my right onto the main trail, stopped and looked away from me towards the area my friend had just ridden to. All I remember seeing was a massive back, very muscular arms, a little point of a head from behind, and wispy black hair swaying in the breeze off of the arms. I knew for sure at this point I was not looking at a bear on its hind legs, nor was it a moose or a man." End quote. I also found a filmmaker named D. McCauley, and he did a movie called Sasquatch on Lake Superior, a documentary a few years ago. This is posted to YouTube and it has over 1 million views, and I definitely recommend this if you're interested in the topic within Ontario. And if you're into Bigfoot within Ontario, I definitely recommend the YouTube page of Mike Patterson. It's called Sasquatch Ontario, and this guy has been researching this topic within the province and beyond for many years. He basically believes that these things are sort of partly biological and partly interdimensional, and they're essentially this ancient race of indigenous beings on Earth. And of course, these creatures are very tied into the indigenous folklore of Canada. He's captured many alleged vocalizations of Bigfoot, and he even claims to have captured some pictures. Honestly, this one's really creepy. I mean, take it with a grain of salt. I have not investigated this at all, but this guy has just done a ton of research on Bigfoot within Ontario, probably more than anyone in recent times. And so if you're really interested in Bigfoot within Ontario, I definitely check out this guy's YouTube page. There's another YouTube channel called Ontario Cryptids, and they present a variety of Bigfoot encounters within the province. Although these videos are usually presenting encounters in story form, whereas Mike Patterson is far more research-based, and he sort of shows why he believes what he does and presents his findings to the public. I even found a story from just last year where students from Trent University's Sasquatch Society did an academic search and study in Simcoe County. And so when you're talking about cryptids within Canada, the Bigfoot or Sasquatch is definitely definitely most strongly associated with British Columbia. But people forget that Ontario is not just Toronto and Ottawa, and the northern portion of the province has vast wilderness areas. And I think that the Bigfoot is one of the strongest cryptid legends within the province. Okay, at number 4 is probably my favorite legend from Ontario, and that is the Toronto Tunnel Monster, or the Cabbagetown Tunnel Monster. So prior to the development of the city of Toronto, Indigenous people in this area had legends of water creatures. For example, the Algonquin tribes had legends of these things called Meme-Gwesi, which were these small riverbank dwelling spirits. They were often described as being child-sized and hairy with a strange voice that sounded like a dragonfly. And the area that Toronto was built on had many streams, rivers, and waterways that, as the city expanded, were actually built over and became a network of underground waterways buried beneath the city and merging with the sewer systems. And so one day in August of 1978, there was a 51-year-old man named Ernest, and he was living in an apartment on Parliament Street in an area of Toronto known as Cabbagetown. And he was out searching for one of his kittens that had gotten lost, and he said that he found this opening to a dark cave in the neighborhood, and he crawled about 10 feet inside looking for his kitten. He had a flashlight on him, and he said that as he was shining the light around in the dark, all of a sudden he saw a creature that absolutely terrified him. He said that this thing was about 3 feet tall and thin like a monkey. It had large teeth. He said it was about 30 pounds, and it had slate gray fur and slanted orange and red eyes. He even said that this creature hissed at him, go away, and then ran off into the darkness. Ernest didn't initially report this encounter to anyone. He thought he would be ridiculed and that people wouldn't believe him. But eventually word got to the Toronto Sun newspaper, and they sent a reporter out to interview him and get the story. Ernest's wife, Barbara, said that she believed her husband. She said that she thought he was telling the truth and it seemed like he wasn't being deceptive. Ernest also said that prior to this encounter, he had heard strange sounds coming from this tunnel that sounded something like animals in pain. And so this creature became known as the Toronto Tunnel Monster, sometimes known as the Cabbagetown Tunnel Monster. And this is really one of the more unique cryptid legends from within Canada. And I even found an article from fall of last year, 2023, that talked about the fact that there was still interest in this cryptid legend within the city of Toronto. And so even though there was only one reported sighting of this creature, I definitely think that the Toronto Tunnel Monster is one of the strongest cryptid legends within Ontario. And then at number 5 to close out this list is Dogman. Now honestly, to me personally, this one seems to be one of the more ridiculous cryptids, and I don't know why, because it's honestly been reported across the continent, just like some of the other cryptids. I don't know, maybe it's the name Dogman. I think that werewolf sounds a lot cooler, because these things are basically the same. And of course, the werewolf is very prominent in European folklore and mythology. But honestly, this is a legitimate cryptid legend, and there have been reports of this thing from across North America, although it's more commonly associated with the eastern portion of the continent, particularly the Northeast and the Great Lakes area. For example, the Michigan Dogman is a very well-known legend, and this thing was first reported in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan, and it's been seen many times in that area. And of course, most of Ontario is part of this Great Lakes region, and it's also had a few Dogman sightings. There's actually a North America Dogman sightings map that someone set up, and this lists 2 sightings in the province, one in northern Ontario and then one near the city of London. There's this great organization called PsyCan, it's Paranormal Studies and Inquiry Canada, and they compile a ton of reports of paranormal type topics, including cryptid sightings. On their site, they talk about a reported Dogman encounter in the late 1960s in the Niagara region of Ontario. Apparently, people were out driving a country road at night and they saw a large bipedal Dogman-like creature in the middle of the road. Apparently, it stopped and looked at their car for a couple seconds and then ran off into the bush. PsyCan also reported a Dogman encounter in Burlington, Ontario in the early 1990s. This report talks about a mother driving her 2 sons home from school at about 4 p.m. on a sunny June day, and this was within the city of Burlington. And all of a sudden, they saw this large Dogman-like creature next to an old house. And this one was interesting because, like I said, it was within the city limits, and the vast majority of Dogman sightings are definitely not in cities. There's also a Facebook group called Dogman Sightings Canada, and this also has a bunch of reported encounters with this cryptid within Ontario. And these are usually in the forested areas of the northern portion of the province. And there's even a website called dogmanencounters.com, and they compile compile reports from across North America. On this particular site, they only have one story from Ontario, and this happened east of Hamilton, and it didn't say when this happened. But apparently this guy was driving on a highway and he claims that he saw a dogman-like creature that was about 8 feet tall. And so honestly, this isn't the cryptid that I'm most interested in, probably because I live in Western Canada and it's just not one of the stronger creature legends in that area of the country. But there are definitely a lot more reports of this creature in the eastern portion of North America, especially in the forested areas around the Great Lakes. And with the nearby Michigan Dogman being a very strong legend within that region, I personally consider the Dogman one of the stronger cryptid legends within the province. Alright, that pretty much wraps up my list of the top 5 cryptid legends within the province of Ontario. And like I said at the beginning, this is not every single cryptid legend from within the province, and I might do a part 2 video like I did with Alberta down the road. And if you like this video, you might get some enjoyment out of my other cryptid videos. I've already covered the provinces of BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And again, if you're really interested in cryptids, I definitely check out Hammerson Peters' YouTube channel. At any rate, I hope you found this video interesting and informative, and if you'd like to watch more of my content in general, please consider subscribing to my channel. I upload at least one new video per week. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Strange North channel.